hitting the record button and it's not going. Hi, good morning. I am planning on doing devotions on the internet. I thought that just a daily devotion was kind of something needed, and thought that maybe I should, if there's other people who needed daily devotions, that they could join in. It's not going to be kind of like, I don't know how long each will be, but I have it broken down into kind of 4 parts. I followed an example let out by Jen Wilken in her book Women of the Word. Really good book. Highly recommended. Could probably add a link below for Amazon or Kindle or something, but it's a really good book. So she kind of just goes over how we need to know more about the Bible and what it actually says and study it for ourselves. So I'm kind of following that guidelines in these morning devotions, and part 1 of that is obviously selecting the book of the Bible. If you're going through it, I guess, yeah, it's not a random selection of 1 or 2 verses, doing a whole book. So, selected James, mostly because that's what she recommended in the book, as a good starting point. And then, answering 5 questions and stuff. So, I have my little paper, probably can't read it, but, so just kind of, I have 5 questions. And I don't know if we'll get through all of them today, the 5 questions. But yeah, we'll just kind of see how all this goes. Yeah, so I guess a disclaimer for people is I'm obviously not a Bible scholar, so I don't know too much. Or just kind of, I don't know, I'm picking James, so if you want to read James with me, I have my husband's study Bible, which will help with some of the questions and stuff. So we'll just start. I think this first one might be slightly easier, and next part, comprehension, what does it say? So yeah, I guess there's a little, if you're gonna follow along or do with what, I'll just read this real quick. So the first part is selecting the book of the Bible and then answering 5 questions. Question 1, who wrote this section of the Bible? Question 2, who was this written for? Question 3, when was this written? Question 4, anyway, how was it written? Like in what style? Like poem, history, stuff like that. And then question 5, why was it written? So those ones might be a bit easier, and then I'm gonna answer those 5 questions in my brand new planner. So I just I keep track and kind of know where I'm at. And yeah, look back and answer questions. Answer the questions again if I need to. And then in part 2, which depending on what questions we get done today, is comprehension. What does it say? And then in order to really like dive into comprehension, she suggests Jen Wilken. Again, read the book. It will help with this because that's really what I'm basing this is to print off a printed or markable copy of the text. I will not be marking up my husband's Bible, so I'm going to go print James, at least starting with James 1. So we're just kind of going through James 1 with these first, and then we'll move on to James 2 later. But a printed, markable copy of James 1, a dictionary, and a different translation. My main translation is English Standard Version. That's the study Bible. And I think the other translation I'll probably use is NIV or New Living. Maybe both. I'll have to see. Most of my actual Bibles are on my phone, so it'll be fun. And then, so those are the tools if you join tomorrow. Try to be at 8 o'clock in the morning every day. Don't know if that will work out so well. But that's the goal. And then, sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. I'll just have to, that'll be me. So then get all of those materials. And then it says repetitive reading. So we'll just read James 1 over and over, marking phrases or ideas that are repeated, marking an attribute of God that is illustrated or celebrated. If there are several points in a row, we'll number them. Mark any words that are not understood. I put ununderstood. I don't know why I did that. So non-understood words, we'll mark those and then look them up in our dictionary and write what the dictionary says. We'll connect concluding thoughts to beginning arguments. The middle word, then if or then, therefore, but, etc. Like putting a little arrow from the end. So this happens, you're doing this, or so on and so forth. We'll read it in the different translation. I don't know if I'll print the other translation. I might. You don't have to. Obviously, you don't have to do anything. You can just sit there and listen to me babble. And then make an outline of the text. So, that's obviously quite a bit. I don't think we'll do all of that tomorrow. Or each time. I don't know. We'll probably just do part 2 in 2 parts. And then after do all of that, you go on to part 3, interpretation. And interpretation answers the question, what does that mean? So we'll have done what does it say? We'll go to what does it mean? And we'll check the cross references. The other parts of scripture, and we'll also paraphrase the meaning. So that one's pretty short, but the study Bible, most Bibles have the cross references in them, especially study Bibles, and then just writing out a paraphrasing of it. And then the last part is the application. How should it change me? Answering that question. And then the sub-questions of those, what does the passage teach me about God? How does this aspect of God's character change my view of self? And what should I do in response? So that last section will be more personal, and I'll still do that part on the live. It'll apply to me and not necessarily to anybody joining me. So you'll have to answer all of those questions yourselves. and if you are joining and actually like doing what I'm doing, you will obviously probably paraphrase differently, or, I mean, there's lots of different, I don't know, interpretation. I have never gone to Bible school. I'm gonna throw that out there. I have just gone to church my entire life, so I know what I've learned from church. I know what I've read myself, and what my husband has taught me, what my father has taught me. So that's my knowledge. That's what I'm coming with. I'm using the ESV Study Bible. There's another commentary that I will probably pull up and use at some point. I don't remember who wrote the commentary. It started with an M, but I don't remember it right now, and I don't have it here. So I'll get that probably tomorrow, and that's what I'm going to use. Commentary, cautiousness in commentaries, like find a good one. Ask your own pastor what a good commentary is. That's the commentary I'm going to be using. That's what my pastor recommended. So yeah, I would, if you're going to use a commentary, I guess you don't have to use the same one I'm using. You can use whichever one you want, but I would definitely ask your pastor or someone for what they would recommend. And obviously, yeah. So, and I think she recommended at one point like a Greek. I don't know if I'll do that. I don't know Greek, and maybe we'll see what the study Bible says, because maybe it has a little bit of Greek translations and stuff in it too. So anyway, so we're starting with James 1. And if you're going to be doing your writing and stuff too, you can always come back and, or just write down on it, grab a piece of paper real quick, write down on the side. Sorry, Alpha's looking at me funny. Write down on the side the 5 questions, and you can either write down what I find the answer, or you can wait and grab your own study Bible or your own research and stuff, and then write down your own answers later, but write down the 5 questions. So, question 1. So this is James 1. And question 1, who wrote this? It's James. Well, I'm going to read through the first chapter of James first, and then we'll go back through and answer the questions. So, James 1. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes in the dispersion. Okay, I memorized this in NIV, so this is going to be a little weird, because it's ESV now. NIV being New Living, or New International Translation, New International Version, ESV being English Standard Version. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes in the dispersion. When I memorized it, was to the 12 tribes scattered among the nations. So, dispersation, scattered. Greetings. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without a reproach, and it will be given him. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting, For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation, and the rich in his humiliation. Because like a flower of the grass, he will pass away. For the sun rises with its scorching heat and withers the grass. Its flower falls, and its beauty perishes. So also will the rich man fade away in the midst of his pursuits. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. Do not be deceived, my beloved brothers. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Knowing this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Therefore put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in the mirror. For he looks at himself and goes away, and at once forgets what he was like. But the one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, he will be blessed in his doing. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God, the Father, is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. I don't remember that last part. But this is why we're doing this. Okay. Read it, and then we'll go back to answer the 5 question. Who wrote this? The chapter itself kind of tells us, it says, James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ. And I know that I just remember it being said that this is probably the brother of Jesus. So James is written by, it says, the title of this book derives its name from its author, James the Just, as he was called, the brother of Jesus, from Matthew 13:55. I flip there but real quick. James, brother. Yes, so if anybody's wondering, Jesus had brothers. He was the oldest, like me. But he had younger siblings, who were Mary and Joseph's kids. This is one of Joseph's kids. Matthew. Yeah, study Bible is much thicker. Okay. Matthew 13, 55. A reference to James. Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary? Are not his brothers James and Joseph and Simon and Judas? So he had at least 4 brothers, and some sisters too. So it sounds like James was his brother. I don't know. Usually when people list family members, I would imagine they list them in order. It's easier, especially in a big family, if you start at the beginning. Jesus, James, John. You know, like moms do. They start yelling at their kids. So I imagine James is his second child. Right after Jesus. I don't know how long would be between them. I don't think this really says. Leader of the Jerusalem church. There is general consensus regarding his authorship, though some have challenged this on grounds that the Greek is too polished and the rhetoric too Hellenistic. Okay. Anybody knows what that is? We're gonna put out a general question. And if anybody has questions too, I'm not gonna answer all questions because obviously I probably won't be able to. I can ask somebody else and maybe address it, but yeah. Anybody Hellenistic? Which I think I have heard of that. I don't know what it is. I think I've heard the word though. We're gonna write that down to look up. Hellenistic. There's another word right after it too. Ask babe. Hellenistic Hellenistic for someone who never left Palestine. The author never calls himself Jesus' brother, and the author seems to interact with Pauline issues. Oh, Paulian. You know, the Apostle Paul. With Paulian issues on faith and works, justification and liberty, and so had to write much later than James could have written, since he was executed in AD 62. There is no good reason, however, to deny that James the Just is the author, as scholars now recognize that there was substantial contact between Jews and Gentiles, especially in Galilee where James grew up. Moreover, James is not reacting to Pauline issues, but rather addressing similar themes in his own church. It is possible he is addressing a misunderstanding of Paul's teaching, but that could have been quite early, since Paul wrote Galatians in AD 48. It is also possible that James is writing so early that he has no knowledge of any of Paul's letters. The history, why we make it so weird, of James the Just is well confirmed in historical literature. Josephus, Jewish Antiquities, lists references, and maybe I'll just put those in the description too. So we're sounds like we're 80% sure that this is James, the brother of Jesus, who wrote this book. So then one of the other questions is, I have written down as the second question, who was it written for? But it answers the when was it written And that's my question 4. So we'll go with the when was it written. Or that's my question 3. So the next kind of answer in the study Bible is when it was written. It says that since James died in AD 62, the letter had to precede that date. Further, if this had been written after the Apostolic Council in Jerusalem, AD 48, what is that? I'm assuming that's when a bunch of the apostles came together and had a council meeting, but we'll double check. Apostolic Council in Jerusalem, it surely would have mentioned the issues from that monumentous occasion. Thus, the letter was most likely written in the early to mid 40s. So, written in the early to mid 40s AD. I'm gonna have to look up when it was that Jesus died in this. I feel like it's not super long after Jesus died and resurrected that then James wrote this. We'll look that up. We'll answer that tomorrow. We'll go back and answer that tomorrow. Okay, made a note. We'll answer that tomorrow. Then our question would be, who was this written for? The audience for James's letter is almost certainly Jewish Christians, as evidenced by the designation, the 12 tribes in dispersion, and assembly, which is the Greek synagogue, in chapter 2, verse 2. The Jewish reasoning throughout, and James's frequent reflections on the Torah, which is the Old Testament, or the law of the Old Testament. If dispersation is literal as well as metaphorical, then these are a group of Jewish Christian house churches outside Palestine, which fits the situation of persecution and poverty in this letter. So, it was written to Jewish Christians that were probably in house churches outside Palestine. Maybe I'll get a map too, so I can find these things. Cause I do better seeing. Do you guys do better seeing? I think. Yeah. Palestine. Here, I'm gonna make a note. So they were probably persecuted and pretty poor. I think that's all I really... Guys, yeah, who was this written? Who wrote this? Who was it written for? When was it written? How was it written? It is a letter. I think that one's pretty self-evident. Oh, look, here's a map. Does it have... Oh, I don't know, it probably will turn up backwards, but... Here is Palestine and Jerusalem. So, to the Jewish Christians in house churches outside of Palestine, so they're not here. Probably Syria, I suppose, or I guess they could be anywhere, but I'd imagine if they're Jewish, they didn't flee too far from Palestine, so probably around the coast area thing there. Yeah, cool little map. Doesn't really the little study Bible part doesn't really say the style. It says the theme and literary features. Let's see what this says about the literary features. But I'm going to write down that it was as a letter. Because that's what it is. It's a letter to the Jewish Christians and house churches. It starts out as a, dear so-and-so. Hi, I'm James. Let's see. Even though James begins with... Boy, guys, this is going to be fun. I don't know this stuff. And epistolary? So, does that mean like a letter? I should have pulled out the dictionary first off. Epistolary. Even though James begins with an epistolary salutation, a letter greeting, the rest of the book does not have the format of an epistle, but rather is a collection of wisdom sayings, much like the genre of wisdom literature as seen in the Old Testament. Oh. Okay, so it's a letter, but not a letter. Glad I continued reading. The generic format of that wisdom literature is the collection of Proverbs. Additionally, the book of James belongs to an ancient Greek form of satire known as the diatribe. The traits of which include imaginary dialogues, including questions and the correct answers, apostrophe. Yeah, you guys should just get your own study Bible so you can read along with me. I have the ESV because I'm not very good at pronouncing things. I just pronounce them in my head and call them right. I have to do it out loud. It sounds weird. Okay, and this apostrophe, direct address to absent people or things as though they are present and can hear you. Like I'm doing to you guys. Except you can't hear me. I just can't hear you. Guess you're not absent either. You're somewhere. Metaphors taken from nature and everyday life. Allusions to famous people from the past. Stock instances or well-known representations of the qualities that are under discussion. Harsh addresses to readers and heightened contrasts. Okay. The most persuasive technique in the book of James is the proverb or apophism in the mode of ancient wisdom teachers. Next in frequency is the rhetorical device of direct command, expressed in the imperative mood of the verb. Be doers of the word, not only hearers. In fact, there are over 50 imperatives in the book's 108 verses. This abundance of commands is a signal that the writer has a practical bent and is interested in action rather than the mere belief as the distinguishing characteristics of Christians. There is also a strong persuasive stance as the author seeks to move his readers into action. The tone is continuously energetic and satire is never far from the surface. Sometimes couched in a somewhat scolding manner. So, learn something new. This is not just a letter, but a letter of wisdom. As if like Proverbs. Yeah. So letter, I'm going to put letter of wisdom. So he's writing it. I guess that makes sense. It's not, I suppose, to like a specific, like, well, Paul's letters were specifically to this church or that church. He knew people there and was commenting on their specific problems. And this is kind of a to all the Jewish Christians type thing. And so it's more of a general wisdom to them. And there are specific problems, but those are more specific to everyone. So they're kind of general. Maybe? We'll see. Lastly, why was this written? I have no idea if that will be in this study. Hopefully. Otherwise we'll have to... No. Well. Look somewhere else. That might be a question to go look up or ask somebody smarter than me. Yeah, the study Bible does not answer that question. Why was this written? I don't know. I suppose that James felt the need to pass along some wisdom to his fellow Jewish Christians. We're gonna put a star by this one. Or yeah, why was this written? Star, find answer. I'm guessing that will probably be a pretty big theme of finding things of why they were written. Maybe not. Maybe some of them are pretty easily spelled out as to why they're written. But look at this. We have some homework. We're finding the answer to why the book of James was written, and what Hellenistic. I have heard of this word, but I'm not going to attempt to say what it is. Hellenistic. That was a type of... The rhetoric is too Hellenistic for someone who never left Palestine. And they make it seem so nice and easy with study Bibles of like, here's a bunch of information that will help you. But then they throw in big words. Normal people don't know. It's not very nice. Oh yeah. That's fascinating. Oh, anyway, and then we're also looking up the Apostolic Council, which I'm assuming is just a council of the apostles who got together and decided on some stuff. So that's the homework. Wasn't too bad, I guess. It was pretty easy finding the answers to the questions in the study Bible version of the book of James. Besides that last one. And yeah, so tomorrow around 8 o'clock again, we'll get together again. We'll get together again and maybe have the answers to those questions. And then we'll move on. We'll have our printed markable copy of James 1. Our dictionary, which I'll remember next time we might want to have for the beginning part 2. And different translations. I think we'll probably mostly just start with the marking of it, of going through James 1 and marking attributes and phrases and ideas that are repeated. If there are several points in a row, things like that is what we'll probably just do tomorrow, along with answering the questions from today. And yeah, so that's our first morning. Wow, 40 minutes. That went by a lot quicker than I thought. Yeah, when you're trying to find answers and stuff, actually your morning devotions go it's not just 15 minutes when you're trying to dig stuff up. I know we didn't really read we read the whole chapter and stuff, but I think this is kind of like you will definitely be able to maybe understand more of James by the end of, well, I really hope we'll be able to understand James a lot better when we're done. There's only 5 chapters, so which still might take probably quite a long time, but so yeah, we'll come back tomorrow and do the marking of the stuff with answers and to those questions. Well, hopefully, if there's no answers to those questions, then there's no answers to those questions. I'm sure there's an answer to the Hellenistic, because it's a word. So, alright. See ya later. If I can hit the stop button.